Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next topic is related to e-voting. I selected this topic because recently you had elections, and it is a very interesting topic from the legal point of view as well. Votings and elections comparatively are a new topic which is being discussed by academicians in Central Asian region. So I decided to give a talk on my region, which is South Asia. I belong to Pakistan. So this will give you a comparative overview and some insights, some of my personal convictions, experiences related to the elections and the votings in my region. And you can use this information and apply it on your own region. So I told you that when we talk about new technologies or innovations, they are like splash of water. When you throw a stone in a still pond, there is a splash. Yes, innovation is like a splash. Law was there, then a new innovation came, a splash happened, and now the people are trying to develop laws, and with the passage of time this splash or the water pond will be calm and quiet and new laws will be there. Similarly, if we talk about technology in votings or elections, there is a splash. Lot many buzzwords are there. People are writing about these electronic votings, and academia is currently trying to accommodate our legal system. Legal scientists are working on developing procedural laws to accommodate the technological innovations in terms of electronic voting. So if we look at electronic voting, how many countries are using electronic voting? 31 countries used electronic voting or electronic voting machines. Only 4 use it nationwide. And some of them they started using and then they stopped using it. A good example is Germany, Netherlands, Paraguay. So Germany and Netherlands are some of the examples of what we call developed countries. They actually started using electronic voting machines and then they disconnected. Now this is a question for you to discover why they disconnected it. Some of the countries which are using them, these are India, Brazil, Bhutan, and Venezuela. You can say that 2 of these countries, India and Bhutan, they are from South Asia, and Brazil and Venezuela, they are from South Americas. Yes. In Russia, you can see that some pilot projects are underway. In future, we don't know, maybe they will start using these technologies. Okay. So Belgium, France, US, Canada, Mexico, Peru, Argentina, Japan, they use electronic voting in different parts of the country. So why there was a second thought? I mean, the countries started using electronic voting machines or digital voting and then they disconnected. But if we look at the example of India, India is a very big country and it was very difficult for them to completely replace the old ballot paper system with electronic voting. But I would say that it is a success story that they were able to replace the old ballot paper system in India, and now they have these electronic voting machines in the whole country. If we talk about England, France, Germany, Netherlands, United States, they have banned the use of electronic voting machines. This is something which is very interesting and interesting topic. It can be a topic for your senior thesis, that why these technologically advanced countries, they decided not to rely on the technology. So if we talk about Indian elections, as I mentioned, India is a good example to take because it is a very big country with more than 900 million registered voters. You can imagine how to manage these 900 million registered voters. And there are 2,354 registered political parties and 1 million polling stations. And they, another interesting thing, that they have so many elections. They have elections of upper house, lower house, regional elections, elections on the divisional level, even on the village level they have elections. Yes. And to digitalize the whole process, I would say that it is a very big achievement of this country. Since 2009, electronic voting machines are being used in India. First pilot projects took place in 1982. Now this voting machine, it has two units, controlling unit and balloting unit. Previously, there were some cases when the project was installed, there were some cases, there were some manipulations with the machines. For example, if you push a button of one person or to vote to a one candidate, no matter which button you are pushing, the vote will be cast in favor of one person because the machine was manipulated. Yes. So then they introduced a system of voter verified paper audit trail, means that you can do electronic voting as well as you will get a paper receipt, so that the votes which are being cast by these machines, they could be traced in case of re-voting. Okay. So there are some limitations of these machines as well, means the number of candidates on one machine, they are limited. If there are more than 64 candidates, it is difficult for the machine to accommodate that, means there are limitations in case of usage of this machine. If we talk about another big country in the region, which is Pakistan, total registered voters are 108 million voters. Yes. So many elections like India. And why it is important at this present time? Because Pakistan has paper voting system, and they are thinking about replacing it with the electronic or digital voting system. And the interesting thing is that the Election Commission of Pakistan is itself against these electronic voting systems. Okay. So this is something which is happening in your neighborhood. One country has completely replaced and the other country is trying to replace, but the election system is against replacing old ballot system with the new voting machine, electronic voting machines. So why there was a need to introduce electronic voting machines in Pakistan? What is the argument? The argument is that there were so many votes which were being rejected. Yes. So you can see these numbers that in latest election 2018, 11.7% votes they were increased in numbers which were rejected. So it is a huge percentage of rejected votes. So to overcome this problem, government decided to introduce electronic voting. So arguments in favor that we want to give people a chance to use their right of vote. They shouldn't be, their vote should not be rejected. Everyone should be able to cast the vote, especially the overseas people who are living in the other countries. They should be able to cast the vote. That's why we need to introduce electronic voting. The other big challenge is the cost. When you shift your country from old ballot paper system to the electronic voting system, there is a huge financial cost which you have to bear. Yes. So cost is a big problem for small countries. In case of Uzbekistan also, one day if you will try to completely digitalize your voting process, it will cost a huge amount of money. And to bring this huge amount of money will be a cost. It will be a big problem for the country. Third country from South Asia which has electronic voting, it is Bhutan. It seems simple for us who are the outsiders. We can say that they have population of less than 1 million people, so it is very easy for them, but it might be very difficult for the country because the country has to look at their internal resources. Yes. and 500,000 voters are registered there. If we look at the turnout of the people who are casting votes, it is increasing with the passage of time. It's mean that people are interested in casting votes, and apparently there are no problems because the population is very small and the voting population is even smaller. So if we talk about electronic voting and internet voting, there is a difference. Electronic voting means you physically go to the polling station and use an electronic voting machine to cast your vote. And internet voting means you can cast your vote wherever you are present. So electronic voting and internet voting are two different things. Internet voting is currently being practiced in many countries. For example, Estonia, your ID card is considered as your everything. You can use your ID card for any purpose, and by sitting any part of the world you can cast your vote. This is a good example of electronic voting. So some of the challenges are written on the right side. I will not go into the detail because of the time. If we talk about barriers to remote online voting system, these are the barriers: privacy, security, access. There are not many laws and regulations. Social and psychological issues. For example, people don't feel satisfied when they cast their vote by internet. They think that their vote will be only casted when they will physically go to the polling station and cast the vote. So there are psychological issues also. Inspection mean if you completely digitalize the process of voting, it is very difficult for the countries to keep a track of the votes which are actually being cast, like in India. So they had to introduce a paper trail system. So the inspection, or the if someone challenges the voting process in a constituency and there are issues related to recounting, then it will sometimes become a problem in case of digital voting or electronic voting. Technology itself has limitations, and with the passage of time, technology is advancing. There are issues related to technology, privacy, and security. Means someone can just simply hack everything, which is very much possible. And when it comes to the standards, there are different standards and preferences of different people, different regions, different ethnic groups, demographic groups, and different attitudes towards the voting system. Yes. And the marketing is also a problem. In terms of capacity building, also there is an issue. How you will convince people to cast their vote through internet, and how you will train your own employees or governmental workers to facilitate the process of voting through internet. First of all, you have to teach them that how to you know uh, do the process. So legality of e-voting. If we talk about legality of e-voting, there are two big issues. The first big issue, which I already mentioned, that upgradation of technology versus slow legal progression. Futuristic technologies versus futuristic laws. What does it mean? It's mean that by the time you will install a technology, this technology will already be old in other part of the world. By the time you will develop a law for a technology, this technology will be old in your own country. So the progression of technology in comparison to progression of law is very fast. Technology is progressing at a very high pace, and law is not able to follow up. The second issue is transparency versus efficiency. It is the same question as I mentioned in earlier classes, privacy versus security debate. Yes. So transparency versus efficiency. Your electronic elections will be more efficient, but what about the transparency? Will they be transparent as well or not? This is a big legal question. That the process will be fast, but will this process be efficient? Okay, this process will be efficient, but what about the transparency? Will this process be transparent? Do you ensure us that electronic voting is more transparent than the old paper voting? No, we don't know at present. So these are two legal questions, and this is what I mentioned in almost all of my classes, that technology is definitely the future. future elections will be based on technology. And as we have learned to live peacefully and in harmony with other animals, in peace and harmony with other humans, in peace and harmony with our ecosystem, similarly, we need to learn to live in peace and harmony with technology. And these three questions, which I always ask whenever there is a new substance matter, whenever there is a need to develop new laws, you have to look into this question through the prism of these three questions. How we can use law to incentivize technology means how we can use law to facilitate the process of technological innovation. Law is not an opposer. Law is not always defending its position. Law, the purpose of law is to facilitate the process. So how can we use law to incentivize e-voting? How can we use law to regulate the use of e-voting systems? There are so many machines are there which can be used in voting. So how the law can regulate these technologies which are available to conduct the election? And finally, how we can use e-voting or the technology to improve the law, how we can use the new innovation technologies to facilitate the process of our legal progression of our legal system. These are three big questions. Thank you very much for your attention.